Welcome to Gapology Radio with your hosts, Mark Tinas and Brian Brockhoff. This is your podcast covering tactics for creating winning leadership and sustainable winning organizations. Discover more information detailed in their books, Gapology, Imbar, and their newest release, Speed of Purpose. We can be reached at gapology.org, and our books can be found at amazon.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Gapology Radio. We're very, very excited about tonight's show. As we shared last week, tonight we will be chatting with two special guests, Judy and Sarah Shoulak. Judy and Sarah are the powerhouse founders of Relatively Speaking, an executive coaching organization, and two of the newest members of the Gapology Team. We can't tell you how excited we are for them to be joining us as they share our purpose of helping leaders achieve their greatest potential. To tell you a little bit about them, Judy's background includes executive leadership in retail and restaurant service industries. She joined Buffalo Wild Wings in 2001 and was promoted to President of International Operations in 2014. During her 16-year career at B-Dubs, Judy was instrumental in creating foundational processes and fostering internal alignment to support the organization's steady growth, including Gapology. Her genuine and approachable style, unwavering determination to accomplish the company's goals, and dedication to develop passionate, high-performance teams have enabled her to achieve consistently strong results. Judy Shoulak has a BA in Business Administration from Capital University in Columbus, Ohio. After beating her own battle with breast cancer, she helped to start a family charity event called Shoulak Breastfest Music Festivals, which raises money for breast cancer research, awareness, treatment, and cure. She serves on the board of directors for Boys and Girls Clubs of the Twin Cities. And in addition, she has served as an active board member for the Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance, where she currently sits on the advisory panel. Sarah Shoulak has vast experience in helping to grow the skills and mindsets of leaders in a variety of business types as a co-founder and leadership consultant at Relatively Speaking, and also as a faculty member at both Valencia Community College and Florida International University, teaching public speaking and interpersonal communication. Her use of humor made it easy for students of all ages to feel comfortable with one of the most uncomfortable experiences people encounter, speaking in front of groups. You could say she was the opposite of the cliched, stuffy college professor. Sarah has a master's degree in communication studies from the University of Miami in Miami, Florida, and a BA in communication from the University of Colorado in Denver. She first joined Toastmasters International in 2008 and was the keynote speaker at the Toastmasters Leadership Institute in 2015. In addition, she is active in her family's music festival fundraiser to support breast cancer research, treatment, education, and cure. On today's show, we're going to dig in a bit more into Judy and Sarah's life and experience with the goal of helping our listeners and clients know even more and hear how they were introduced to Gapology and how it's been an important part of their journey. So let's get this podcast going and let you meet Judy and Sarah Shoulak. All right. Well, welcome, Judy, and welcome, Sarah, to Gapology Radio. Mark and I are extremely excited for tonight's show and even more excited for you to be joining us on this journey to help leaders achieve their greatest potential. I'm actually going to go and turn things over to Mark to share how you all first met and that kind of thing, and then he'll navigate things from there. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Works for me.
Perfect.
So I met Judy in 1995, a long, long time ago, because she hired me at Office Max. And Office Max was nearly a 20-year journey for me, almost 20 years. It was incredible. It launched my career in many different directions. So I'm forever grateful of the day I met Judy. Not only did my career take off, but I discovered Gapology, and I met my writing and consulting partner, Brian, none of which would have happened had I not met Judy. And so Judy recruited me away from a large retail organization where I was there, very successful, talked me into coming there and running the California market initially. And it was amazing. And then she leaves me. She leaves to go begin this spectacular career that she had at Buffalo Wild Wings. So very proud of Judy, very blessed to have met her. And then because of that, I met Sarah, so Sarah through Judy. So it was a life-changing event for me. I don't know if Judy's totally connected with that, but it was meant to be. And then they formed, Judy and Sarah formed, relatively speaking, after the Buffalo Wild Wings days. And I think the rest is history. So, Judy, tell us about your career, and Sarah, and relatively speaking, and your version of the events.
Yeah. Well, do I get to give my version of meeting you? So, yeah, it was really fun. It was just every once in a while you meet those people in your life that you just connect with, and it's going to be a lifelong relationship. And I've always had a knack for hiring amazing people. I just normally don't leave them as quickly as I left Mark, but I was with Mark, we worked together at Office Max long enough for me to recognize his amazing leadership skills. And he was amazing at starting things. Well, a lot of things do start in California and then they come through to the rest of the country. So Mark just showed us that was going to be true in many other ways as well. But he would just try things. Then he'd come to a meeting and say, here's what I've been doing and here's my results. And he was just a really amazing leader. And then, then I went off to Buffalo Wild Wings, and I guess I'll just kind of leave the meeting part there. But, I had worked at a couple of different retail organizations. Office Max was my third. I seem to have a knack for liking those up and coming organizations that you can really build at crazy speed or something. It just thrives my, thriving on chaos need that I have. But it was really a great experience. I probably was at Office Max with Mark I was there for about 8 or 9 years. And then I left and I went on to my journey at Buffalo Wild Wings in the retail space. And that was just a phenomenal experience of being able to take an organization from, I think there were only 80 stores when I got there, and we grew it to being a company of 1,200 restaurants across the United States and then internationally. And it was really great. And I'm very grateful for the time that I was there. And then I had decided that eventually when it wasn't filling me up as much as I wanted it to, I was going to go on to something else. And I had this, I don't know, for some reason I thought it was a good idea. I had 3 children. I was going to start 3 different companies with them. And so I started worked in a couple franchises with my 2 sons, but Sarah and I decided to create our very own thing, which has been the most fun and most passionate, because we're relatives and we're speaking, that we would be able to address topics to different groups and individuals, and really looking at things from a couple different generations. So we figure now as we've gotten into it, we really can tap into if we go up and down 15 years, we pretty much have a gamut of everyone in our audience we can connect to in some way. And Sarah's a brilliant young lady and business partner, and it's really been fun to take our relationship to a new level as we've been able to help leaders achieve their potential through our assistance and working with Gapology and our other business ventures that we're doing. But yeah, it's been great. Our relatively speaking business has evolved as we've been putting on workshops. Actually, I think I'll let Sarah tell you more of the content of what we're doing with Relatively Speaking, as she talks a little bit about her background, and then she can tell you kind of how we've evolved with Relatively Speaking.
Yeah, thank you, Judy.
I like how
go for it.
I like how subtly she threw that pun in there for you guys with the Relatively Speaking, because we're relatives and we're speaking. That was all her brainchild.
Love it.
Clever.
Yeah. It has been exciting and a really unique journey as we got here from our different backgrounds and our different upbringings. And that's one of the things we love doing on our live streams, on the shows that we do every other Sunday, where we talk about our experiences and how they connect to these business topics. And I love hearing my mom's examples, because I know a good number of the stories of her life that she's told over the years, but hearing how she pieces it together to connect to those different audiences is awesome. And I cannot sing the praises of her enough and say that I grew up with the most incredible role model. I'm immensely spoiled. If I didn't think that I was before, the fact that Judy Shoulak is my mother was like the best genetic bingo ever, right? Or genetic jackpot. But I got to learn from her firsthand. I got to see a strong, powerful woman breaking the glass ceiling, not caring, tearing down barriers, building people up, building teams, caring about what mattered. And she was a warrior for it. She was just an absolute aggressive advocate. And I loved watching it. And how could you not be inspired by that? So I grew up with this, I'm going to take over the world mentality. And my career, as Brian mentioned earlier, has kind of jumped in between working at agencies, primarily marketing agencies, because my degrees are in communication. But then I was also a teacher, a professor at a number of different universities. So I think that those skills that I've gathered along the way have really mirrored and balanced Judy's skills in this way that she was mentioning, that not only can we hit a really, really broad demographic with our offerings and our services, but we make it relatable and we give those examples, and it's all the same problems. And that was what we realized when I would call her on my way to work and kind of talk through issues that I was having. And I was using her as a sounding board and bouncing the ideas off of her, is I was having the same type of problems that she was having, regardless of the industry or the background or the experience. So when we both went together to create Relatively Speaking, we wanted to focus on topics that were broad enough. They were workshops on conflict resolution and team building and execution. And we just looked at our own pitfalls and we self-reflected and said, this is what we think our audience could use. And we'll say, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but that conflict one is on fire. There is plenty of conflict to go around. And we've actually met a good number of our private, personal, professional, whichever P you want to use, our coaching clients through that conflict workshop, because sometimes people don't really know where to start with an issue. And so they're just here, conflict resolution workshop. Gosh, I need some of that. So they sign up, and then we stay after and talk to them a little bit and really get to the root. Spoilers, root solution. We get to the root of the issue. And really, coaching is the best option, because they need someone to kind of go along with them on that journey. And that's something that we got really excited about, the opportunity of working with Gapology, is that long-term relationship that takes you with your client or your partner or the people that you're immersed with, and really help them in a long-term basis. And I think we've all been passionate about that, and it's been a common thread. So it's been a very exciting, what are we at, 3 or 4 years? 5? Where are we at, Mama?
Yeah, I think it's between 4 and 5. But I always like the word. I love the word evolving, because I think that's just, as individuals, as leaders, as parents, as partners, we're just always evolving. We just never stay the same, because every time something affects our lives, we become just a little bit different. And so I think our business has evolved, and I'm just so excited about working with Sarah and Mark and Brian in Gapology. And there are so many moments that I will never forget. But when we actually had decided to, after everything, we'll talk about some more little milestones with Gapology, but most recently when Sarah and I had been talking about because we had used some of the Gapology things in our execution workshop. So it was always a passion of ours. When we talked about execution, Gapology was always part of it. But then when I had called Mark and he wasn't calling me back, and I was wondering, why is this? He ghosting me. And then I realized I had some old number. And
once you got my number, what did it take? 30 seconds?
Then he called me in 30 seconds. He said, I was just talking to Brian about you this morning. It's so amazing that you called. And then we just decided that it really was meant to be that. And it was the right time. We would have tried to do it. We needed to evolve through the first several years of our, relatively speaking, on our own, to be able to realize how this was just such a perfect fit. And it gave us more, like we have more time available to be able to do it now, just based on the other things going on in our lives. Yeah, Sarah and I we're just like spare time city, aren't we, Sarah?
I gotta tell this story. I gotta tell this story then. So picture this now. Judy's gone from Office Max. Mark's all alone, but he's got Brian. And we're running a 1,000 store chain. And we discover Gapology. It was a discovery, no joke. We saw that the winning leaders had a totally different behavior than the rest. And we started looking at it and we started sharing it. And the underperforming leaders were able to take it and become winning leaders. It was crazy good. So we write this book. Brian had a little bit of spare time, right, Brian?
Yeah, a little bit.
So we had some spare time on our hands and we knocked out this manuscript. And I called Judy and say, hey, you're at Buffalo Wild Wings, hey, just read through this manuscript and see what you think. And our first client, our biggest client for the first number of years was Buffalo Wild Wings. And Judy took this thing and she ran with it like we couldn't even imagine. We couldn't even imagine. And that changed everything. It put Gapology on the map. And so, Judy, could you share how Gapology impacted you and impacted the business? And then I want to hear about how Sarah first heard about it. But we'll turn it to you first, Judy.
Yeah. Well, the point, I was so busy, seriously, at Buffalo Wild Wings when Mark called and said, oh, by the way, could you read this manuscript? I couldn't even read a one-page memo. And he's like, could you read this manuscript? And of course I told him, I have no time, but I really would like to help you. And immediately I hung up the phone and I'm asking my administrative assistant. Of course, I'm like old fashioned. I want to look at the paper. I want to make notes on this. So I was getting on an airplane going somewhere. She printed the whole thing out and I couldn't stop reading it. I was so excited. I'm positive that I have never read a book that solved more problems that I addressed every single day in my job. And I was like,
wow.
This is
Write
so...
that down, Brian. Whatever she just said. Write that down.
Please quote me on that. Don't you hate that when you say something really impactful and then it's like, what did we say? That sounded so good. I can't remember what it was.
I think we're recording.
Yeah, we should record.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's
recording.
Great. That's a good thing. But anyways, I really was. It was so true. And I dealt with it every day in my job with Buffalo Wild Wings and operations. And I give this example all the time where somebody would come into my office and they would say, do you know how the people are handling tips in the restaurant? And I'd go, no, how are they handling tips in the restaurant? And they would say, well, they're doing this, this, this. And I said, and what should they be doing? Well, they should be doing this, this, this. And I said, and how would they know that? Well, we sent a memo 6 months ago. I'm like, wow, 1/3 of those people no longer work here. Okay. We are not. So obviously people have a knowledge gap. That's it. So it started all making sense. They do not know what to do. They were not here when the memo came out. So anyways, that's just one small example of how I fell in love with this book. And I think it's in its simplicity that it was just, there's so many complex books on things that it's just too hard to run those through an organization. I mean, and something like this, we started when we decided to bring Gapology into Buffalo Wild Wings. We started at the highest level, which is really important, I think, because you can't start at one level and then no one else understands the language. So we addressed every single level of the organization with Gapology. And I think one of the things that was most impactful was, first of all, as companies grow, so do the things that are important to them and their amount of metrics. So we were like metric city, and we had 100 different things that were important. And we all know that when everything's important, nothing's important. So when Mark came in and took, once the book was completed and he came in and worked with our organization, they forced us to narrow down, like, what were the one or two things that we really wanted to change. And that was like probably the one, first of all, the most important thing. But then we were a company that was on the move. Everything was quick. If other people were doing 5 things, we were doing 10 things. If it took somebody else 10 weeks, we would do it in 5 weeks. And then we had to start with 1,200 stores, and we didn't have that many stores when we were doing this. Let's just say there were 600. Habits don't come overnight. And that was a really big lesson for us, was that if we were truly going to achieve consistent execution in our organization, we needed to recognize the steps and it was the habit ladder that we really, I think, fell most in love with and used most often. And just recognize that you can't just write a memo and expect that 1,200 stores are executing something consistently. No matter how much you want it to go more quickly, there are steps that have to take place. And so we really did work through the habit ladder and making sure that we were clearly communicating things and that people really understood them and that they had that time to be able to practice, and that, eventually they would make things habits and we would get consistent execution. But it was taking away that fantasy that we're just going to make things happen overnight, because things happen quickly in today's day and age. So that was really my favorite, I think, example. And
I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you know this, but the habit ladder is exclusive to the Gapology. We own it. We own it. We found it. We designed it from Winning Leaders. It is only in Gapology. And it is unbelievable. PepsiCo rolled the habit ladder worldwide the minute they heard about it. It worked in every division.
Well, and now, I mean, just I think and Sarah can probably attest to this a little bit more in her generation and things that, I mean, everything is instantaneous. So building a habit by having to go through more than one step is something that you sometimes have to slow people down to speed things up. And that's, I think, one of the best things that, so, yeah. But I mean, I think that's been really amazing. And I mean, I think we should pass it on to Sarah and talk about, because I know she fell in love with it immediately as well.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, because Judy and I kind of prepped a little bit before this session here when we were thinking about what we were going to discuss about the business and so on and so forth. But we didn't compare notes about the examples we were going to give about Gapology. And I kid you not, I know it's not a visual medium, but I have the habit ladder in front of me, because I was going to say that I haven't had the same type of application experience that Judy's had. Obviously, Judy had the opportunity to help Gapology in its formation. To answer your question, Mark, I probably first heard about it when my mother was so excited that she had written the foreword of a book. and I was still a strapping young teenager. And I was reading a bunch of those, Who Moved My Cheese for Teens, What Color Is Your Parachute for Teens, those types of books. So when mom wrote the foreword of a book, I mean, that's like, that's one step away from being in Chicken Soup for Your Soul. So she was like a hero. Okay. So that's probably when I first read it. But then as I've gotten older and I do start to see those parallels, like we were talking about in the formation of Relatively Speaking, and seeing how much overlap and crossover there is that transcends generationalism and ageism and everything like that, where it really doesn't matter where you started on the timeline. We're all dealing with the same stuff. and that's kind of like the great unifier. So when it comes to the habit ladder, as I mentioned, my degrees are in communication. So to just start at communication and hope people understand and comprehend and really take things to heart, that's a whole different monster. That's so many more steps. And for you to visualize this and put it into a format that's so digestible for people, there's no way that this couldn't impact more areas of your life, is what I think of when I see this tool. But my second favorite, which I'm going to go follow up with my boyfriend, is the commitment ladder. So I'll be back. I'll report back on that
one. Awesome. Love that.
Good luck with that.
We'll see how it goes.
That's amazing. I was talking to a friend last night who's involved in a roofing company that is growing to be $1 billion roofing company across 5 states. And I said, so what are you guys focused on? And I'm waiting to hear about shingles, stuff like that, right? He says, well, we're focused on the habit ladder. The habit ladder. That's our number one focus. The habit ladder will deliver $1 billion roofing company. Okay, got it. Agreed.
My gosh.
Yeah,
they don't climb the habit ladder to get to the top of the roof, do they?
That is not OSHA.
Everybody on the roof's going to have to carry a copy of it up on the roof, right?
They could just put the names, each step of the ladder on their back like a football jersey.
Right. But that was pretty unbelievable to me. But so for those of you that haven't connected with us yet, Judy and Sarah are joining the Gapology team. They are going to conduct Gapology workshops for your organization. And what we do is we tailor it to your organization. We determine, with your help, the gaps that you have, and we develop a plan to close those gaps and teach you how to keep them closed. And it works. The habit ladder is just part of closing gaps. So we're so excited to have Judy and Sarah along with us for this ride. To give you an example, beyond Buffalo Wild Wings, which is crazy, Brian and I did a workshop in Minneapolis. I better not give the organization's name. Let's say that they are 1/200th of the organization. 1/200th, somewhere around there. We do the Gapology workshop for 1/200th. The phone rings a week later and they say, all 200 need the workshop. The entire organization. And we were able to change that entire organization and go from a deficit to a plus. Gapology simply works. We can't explain how it was discovered. It was, just Judy hiring Mark and, her magic wand or whatever she walks around with, I guess. and Brian coming in to pick up the pieces and put it all together. But Judy and Sarah are part of the Gapology team. And we're very proud of that and amazed by that. And we're going to do some great things. So, Brian, I turn it to you.
So first of all, again, congratulations for joining the Gapology team. I'm also super, super excited. And I've shared this before, but I'm just really blown away by the energy and even just the different way of looking at things that you're bringing to the organization. So I'm very excited to work with you guys. I know we're going to do some great things. So, but that's all we have for questions. what we would like to do is just kind of open it up for questions from any of our audience. If you guys have questions for Judy or Sarah, shoot us an email at contact@gapology.org, and we'll tie that into some future podcasts. And I know we'll get you guys on the podcast again down the road. But thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. We're so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been our pleasure. And again, it's just some teams are meant to be. And I think it's all, Sarah and I had a Facebook Live this past weekend. It was really talking about relationships. And Mark, I actually talked about you on our show on Sunday, because we talked about relationships that had remained constants in our life, and how you didn't have to talk every 3 months, but that when you really have that true relationship, that it just stays with you and evolves somewhere again in your life. And I'm just so happy that we're all working together. I'm just so excited about it. It's just good people working together to help leaders achieve their potential, their greatest potential.
Write that down.
Yep. Sounds good.
I love it.
Love it. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Okay.
We'll talk to y'all later.
Have a great evening.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, that'll do it from here. To learn more about Gapology, our books, our online training course, or even to book a workshop with Judy and Sarah, head on over to our website, gapology.org. Everybody have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you soon.
This has been a Gapology production. Visit us at gapology.org.